Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 22, The Descendants of Ajamida. Text 21 till 25. We will recite 25 together, which is here on the board. And I will first read 21 till 24. Vichitra Viryasta Chavar Vichitra Viryas Chavarayo Namna Shintran Gato Hata Yasyam Parasarat Sakshat Avatirno Hare Kada Vedo Gupta Mani Krishna Yatram Midam Atyagam Itvas Vasishyam Pailadin Bhagavam Vadarayana Ayam Putraya Santaya Param Kuyam Idam Yoga Yago Vishitra Vyayotova Kasyacham Sute Balat Ayambara Upanite Ambikam Balike Ubhe Tayora Saktaridayo Chaitoyas Manavita. Translation. Chitrangada, of whom Vichhavirya was the younger brother, was killed by Gandharva, who was also named Shintrangada. Satyavati, before her marriage to Santanu, gave birth to the master authority of the Vedas, Vyasadeva, known as Krishna Dvaipajana, who was begotten by Parasara Muni. From Vyasadeva, I, Sukadev Goswami, was born, and from him I studied this great work of literature, Srimad Bhagavatam. The incarnation of Godhead Vyasadeva, rejecting his disciples headed by Baila, instructed Srimad Bhagavatam to me because I was free from all material desires. After Ambika and Ambalika, the two daughters of Kasiraj, were taken away by force, Vichitra Virya married them, but because he was too attached to these wives, he had a heart attack and died of tuberculosis. Text 25. We can repeat together. Chetre payasya vibrat. Maitok to Badarayana. Kritarashtam sapandam cha. Viduram cha pachichana. Kshetre payasya vabrato. Matrokto Badarayana. Tritarashtram sapandum cha. Viduram cha achichanat. Kshetre payasya vaibhadu. Matrokto Badarayana. Vistarashtram Chapandam Cha Viduram Cha Pachechanat Kshetre Payasya Vaibhatu Matrapto Badarayana Vistarashtam Sapandam Cha Viduram Cha Pachechanat Kshetre Payasya Vaibhatu Matrapto Badarayana Vitarashtam Sapandam Cha Viduram Cha Pachechanat. Kshetre Payasya Vaibhatu Matrapto Badarayana Vistarashtam Sapandam Cha Viduram Cha Pachechanat Kshetre in the wives and maidservants Aprayasya of Vishitra Virya who had no progeny. Why? Indeed, Radhu of the brother Matra Ukta being ordered by the mother Badarayana Vedavyas Dhritarashtra, a son named Dhritarashtra, Cha and Pandu, a son named Pandu, Cha also, Vidura, a son named Vidura, Cha also, Api, indeed, Achechanat, begot. Translation and purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Badarayana Sri Vyasadeva, following the order of his mother Satyavati, begot 3 sons, 2 by the womb of Ambika and Ambalika, the 2 wives of his brother Vijravirya, and the 3rd wife Vijravirya's maidservant. These sons were Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and Vidura. Vijravirya died of tuberculosis, and his wives Ambika and Ambalika had no issue. Therefore, after Vijravirya's death, his mother Satyavati, who was the mother of Vyasadeva, asked Vyasadeva to beget children through the wives of Vijravirya. In those days, the brother of the husband could beget children through the womb of his sister-in-law. This was known as Devarina Sutapati. If the husband was somehow unable to beget children, his brother could do so through the womb of his sister-in-law. This Devarina Sutapati and the sacrifices of Asvamedha and Gomedha are forbidden in Kali-yuga. Asvamedam Kalalumbam Sannyasam Palapaitrikam Devarena Sito Patim Kalpa Pancha Vivarchayet This from Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Lila 17:164. In this age of Kali, 5 acts are forbidden: the offering of a whole sacrifice, the offering of a cow sacrifice, the acceptance of the order of sannyas, the offering of oblations of flesh to the forefathers, and a man's begetting children in his brother's wife. This from the Brahma Vaivarta Purana. Om Magyana Timantasya Chanam Chanam Shakshu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Ichetayam Upistram Saptam Yena Bhutarishkam Rupkadamyam Dadatishkam Padantikam Vandeham Shiyu Shiyuda Padakamanam Shiyu Vaishamam Shah Shirupam Chagasatam Sakam Raghunatam Pitam Tam Sadivam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Bhajana Saitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sakarandita Shivshakam Pitam Shah He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jyatpate Gopesha Kopka Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchna Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshri Vishavani Siddha Devi Pranamama Hari Priye Vaka Kauta Visha Kripa Sindhu Visha Patinam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jai Advaita Gadadhar Shivasti Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vistaya Putale Shimante Bhaktivedanta Swami Tidamini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachavini Nirvishesha Srinyavadi Paskachai Tasatarani Srila Prabhupada Ki. So here we have Srila Vyasadeva doing the needful, and then the sons were born, Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and Vidura. Now in the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentioned this, that because this practice known as Devarena Sutta Pati, if the husband was somehow unable to beget children, his brother could do so through the womb of his sister-in-law. And then this verse is quoted that in Kali-yuga, 3 things are forbidden. That offering of a horse sacrifice, offering of a cow in sacrifice, acceptance of the order of sannyas, offering of oblations of flesh to the forefathers. Now, I've been secretary for the Ministry of Sannyas many years, and I got an email. Sannyas is forbidden in Kali-yuga. Why do you give sannyas in ISKCON? It's in the scriptures here. It's forbidden. And Prabhupada came at a certain moment in 1977, because so many sannyasis fell down. He said, "Stop this nonsense. No sannyasis anymore, that they all become riyastas." He was fed up with it. But there is one quote like that. Of course, after that, he gave still 3 sannyas meditations. And one of them was to Bhakti Charuman. That was interesting. But now we have to understand this quote, that we need to get a deeper understanding of this significance of sannyas in Kali-yuga. So you have this verse here, which is quoted here from it's called from it was mentioned in the purport. Go back. Brahma Vaivarta Purana, that's where it comes from. That So I read it again. Asvameda Kavaldamba Sannyasam Pala Paitagam Devarina Sutopatim Kalapaksam Vivarchayat. So in this Kali-yuga, 5 things should be avoided. Performing from sacrifice by offering cows, performing sacrifice by offering a horse, and oblation offering to forefathers with meat, and then to beget a child by the husband's younger brother. Maybe it was practiced formerly, according to the Vedic rituals, the husband's wife, and so on. So Prabhupada suggests that there is a permanent relation, there is no divorce, nothing of this sort is allowed in Kali-yuga. But in case of the husband being sick or dead, the woman was allowed, if she has no children, to get children by the husband of the younger brother, and that's called Devarina. That is also now not allowed. So these 5 things are not allowed in this age of Kali-yuga. Sacrifice of offering cows, sacrifice of offering a horse, sannyas, renouncing family life, sannyas order, offering obeisances with meat, the forefathers, and begetting children to the husband's younger brother. These 5 things are forbidden. So if we look at it carefully, we see that there is something more to be considered here. We see that both in the Vaishnava and also in the impersonalist Mayavadis sannyas, sampradayas, or sannyas was taken. Shankaracharya, it took sannyas, right? And many other sannyasis from the Mayavadi schools. And there are also acharyas of our 4 principal Vaishnava sampradayas. They, like the Vishnu Swami, the Nimbarkacharya and more, and also in our sampradaya, we come across sannyasis like Prabodhananda Saraswati, Madhavendra Puri, and Ishvara Puri. So when Mahaprabhu was in his Pauganda stage, at the age from 5 to 10, we know that his brother Vishvarupi took also sannyas. So at that time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was known as Nimai. So in the Chaitanya Lila, in the Chaitanya Lila, Adi Lila, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes that Jagannath Mishra and Sachideva were filled with grief when Vishvarupa had taken sannyas. And Nimai pacified them. He said, what happened is good. Vishvarupa has taken sannyas. Now Vishvarupa has delivered his ancestors from both sides. So after some years, of course, Lord Chaitanya, he took himself sannyas. Following in his footsteps, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also took sannyas and initiated many disciples into the renounced order. And that's, at one side, we have these practical examples. At the other side, we have this Shastric quote here. That the Shastric quote that says sannyas is forbidden in Kali-yuga. So, but we have on the other side the practical examples of great acharyas in all sampradayas, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself who took the renounced order of life. That in the purport of Adi 15:14, Srila Prabhupada writes, it is sometimes said that Lord Chaitanya disapproved of the acceptance of sannyas order in Kali-yuga, because it is said, Asvamedha Kavalampa Sannyasam Palapaitakam Devarena Situpa Tim Kala Pasha Divarjayat. In this Kali, 5 acts are forbidden. Offering of a horse in sacrifice, in the offering of a cow in sacrifice, acceptance of the order of sannyas, the offering of oblations of flesh to the forefathers, and a man's begetting children in brother's wife. That's from the Brahma-Vaivarta Purana. And that is from the Krishna Janma Kanda, the certain part of the Brahma-Vaivarta Purana, chapter 185, text 180. So nevertheless, we see that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself accepted sannyas and approved of the sannyas of his elder brother Vishvarupa. It is clearly here that Baila Haila Vishvarup Sannyas Karila Pita Kula Mata Kula Dui Udarila. Therefore, should it be taught that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made statements that are contradictory? No, actually, he did not. It is recommended that one accepts sannyas to dedicate his life for the service of the Lord, and everyone must take that kind of sannyas. For accepting sannyas, one renders the best service to both his paternal and maternal families. But one should not accept the sannyas order of the Mayavadis, which has practically no meaning. We find many Mayavadi sannyasis simply loitering on the street, thinking themselves Brahman or Narayan, and spending all day and night begging so that they can fill their hungry bellies. The Mayavadi sannyasis have become degraded, so degraded that there is a section of them who eat everything, just like hogs and dogs. It is such a degraded sannyas is prohibited in this age. Actually, Sri Shankaracharya's principles for the acceptance of sannyas were very strict, but later the so-called Mayavadi sannyasis became degraded because of their false philosophy, which propounds that by accepting sannyas one becomes Narayan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected that kind of sannyas. But the acceptance of sannyas is one of the items of the Varnashram Dharma. How can it be rejected? Thus, Srila Prabhupada, he explains, sannyas is part of Varnashram, is one of the 4 ashrams. So how can you say that sannyas cannot be there in Kali-yuga? There is no injunction that Varnashram should be rejected in Kali-yuga. Mahaprabhu himself took it. But Srila Prabhupada gives another reason. We can understand that the prohibition of this verse in the Brahma-Vaivarta Purana is specifically meant for a certain class of people. A. It is meant for those Mayavadi sannyasis who live some form of degraded lives. Prabhupada says they loiter in the street just to fill their bellies and eat many times substances that the sannyas should not be eating. B. Shankaracharya was very staunch. He set a very high standard of conduct for sannyasis, but many of his followers, down to the generations, became loose. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, such the greatest sannyas wherein a Mayavadi thinks that by accepting sannyas, he becomes Narayan, that is prohibited. Elsewhere in Chaitanya, Chaitamrita, Madhya 1809, we hear Dandareina Matrena Naronarayana Bhavat, meaning simply by accepting the order of sannyas, one is immediately transformed into Narayan. Srila Prabhupada says that people who practice this principle or this philosophy have the greater conception, and therefore such sannyas is forbidden. Now there's a third reason here. Srila Prabhupada gives in other parts of his teachings. In this age of Kali, most people are Sudras by qualification, and therefore they are unable to follow the rules and regulations. So how can they take sannyas? But if there are some people who, by dint of their Krishna consciousness, can follow the rules and regulations, then there is no harm in taking sannyas. And then Srila Prabhupada gives a fourth reason. Srila Prabhupada mentions elsewhere that in this Kali-yuga, which is the age of hypocrisy and cheating, many charlatans will pose as exalted saints, as swamis and sannyasis, and fool the public just for profit, adoration, distinction, name, fame, prestige, for material facilities, money, and so on. Obviously, such a sannyas is forbidden. So if we take a closer look at our previous acharyas, what our previous acharyas had said, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur specially mentioned that there are three kinds of sannyasis. Three kinds of sannyasis, which he quoted from the Padma Purana. They are mentioned in the Padma Purana. One kind of sannyas is karma sannyas. The other is jnana sannyas, and the third one is Veda sannyas. Veda sannyas is the Vaishnava sannyas, the Tridanta sannyas, which the Vaishnavas take. Jnana sannyas is the sannyas of the impersonalists take. The Vaishnavas have a Tridanta, whereas the impersonalists have one stick, an Ekadanda, because they follow the path of Jnana. Moving on, the karma sannyas basically refers to that kind of sannyas which one takes within the varnashram system when one gets old, but without requisite spiritual knowledge or understanding, and without the qualifications required for sannyas. Therefore, the jnana sannyas and the Veda sannyas are not permitted, but the karma sannyas is forbidden. That taking sannyas without knowledge, according to the Varna ashram system, that the sannyas, so the Brahmins are the head of society, that the head of the Brahmins is the sannyas, must have high knowledge, otherwise no question of taking sannyas. You must be able to instruct the Brahmins. That if one is not in that position, sannyas is forbidden. So this quote comes from the Brahma Vaivarta Purana, that one cannot take sannyas in Kali-yuga. In the Brahma Vaivarta Purana, there are many verses where sannyasis appears in different places. However, the types of sannyas mentioned there is this karma sannyas. Actually, actually in the 5 prohibited items mentioned that appear in Chaitanya Charitamrita are part of karma kanda. In other words, this Brahma Vaivarta Purana, this section is about karma kanda, and must be seen in that context of karma kanda, and not outside of that. And there, in this karma kanda, those who perform karma kanda, they take sannyas without knowledge. It's called karma sannyas, and that's forbidden. And that's meant in this Brahma Vaivarta Purana. that the type of sannyas mentioned there is karma sannyas. Actually, in the 5 prohibited item mentions that appear in the Chaitanya Charitamrita are part of the karma kanda, like worshipping the forefathers, offering animals in sacrifice, and more. The sannyas that follows the process of karma kanda is forbidden. That's what's meant. Nevertheless, Vaishnava sannyasis is not prohibited. The clarification is actually important. So we see many of our acharyas that take sannyas. So that's the first point. Is also what's also forbidden in Kali-yuga, the offering of a horse sacrifice, horse in sacrifice, or the offering of a cow in sacrifice. Interesting, if we go to this is Chaitanya Charitamrita, is chapter 17 of the Adi Lila. And this is a conversation between the Kazi and Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya, the Kazi would forbid them to do Harinam, and Lord Chaitanya organized a protest action, and they came all in the night chanting the holy names to the house of the Kazi. Kazi was afraid, but finally Lord Chaitanya met the Kazi, and they had a discussion. And in the discussion at a certain time, the Kazi challenged Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said, in your Vedic scripture, there is an injunction for killing a cow. On the strength of these injunctions, great sages performed sacrifices involved cow killing. So he knew that's in the Vedas. But what does it mean? Now, what does Lord Chaitanya reply? He replies, refuting the Kazi's statement, the Lord immediately replied, the Vedas clearly enjoin that cows should not be killed. Therefore, every Hindu, whoever he may be, avoids indulging in cow killing. So, I read the purport also, and the next verse also, it will clarify everything. In the Vedic scriptures, there are concessions for meat eaters that it is said that if one wants to eat meat, he should kill a goat before the goddess of Kali, and then eats it meat. Meat eaters are not allowed to purchase meat or flesh from a market or slaughterhouse. There are no sanctions for maintaining regular slaughterhouses to satisfy the tongues of meat eaters. As far as cow killing is concerned, it is completely forbidden. Since the cow is considered a mother, how could the Vedas allow cow killing? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu pointed out that the Kazi's statements was faulty. In the Bhagavad Gita, there is a clear injunction that cows should be protected. Bhagavad Gita 1844, the Vaishnavas. Shiko Rakshavanyam Vaishkarmas Vabhavacham. The duty of Vaishnavas is to produce agricultural products, trade, and give protection to cows. Therefore, it is a false statement that the Vedic scriptures contain injunctions permitting cow killing. But 160, text 160. In the Vedas and Puranas, there are injunctions declaring that if one can revive a living being, one can kill it for experimental purposes. It's interesting. So they had in the Satya Yuga and previous ages, there were pure Brahmins, and they could recite very purely the mantras. And by the power of their mantras, they could revive, they could sacrifice a cow in in the fire sacrifice, and it would come out with a new body, a young new body, they call, rejuvenated. That's great mystic power. And that is mentioned here. In the Vedas and Puranas, there are injunctions declaring that if one can revive a living being, one can kill it for experimental purposes. Therefore, the great sages sometimes killed old cows by chanting Vedic hymns, and they brought them back to life for protection. That the killing and rejuvenation of such an old and invalid cow was truly not killing, but an act of great benefit. Formerly, there were powerful Brahmins who could make such experiments using Vedic hymns, but now, because of the Kali-yuga, Brahmins are not so powerful. Therefore, the killing of cows and bulls for rejuvenation is forbidden. In this age of Kali, 5 acts are forbidden. The offering of a horse in sacrifice, that's for the same reason, that the offering of a cow in sacrifice, the acceptance of the order of Sannyasa, the offering of oblations of flesh to the forefathers, and a man's begetting children in his wife. So since you Muslims cannot bring killed cows back to life, you are responsible for killing them. Therefore, you are going to hell. There is no way for your deliverance. Cow killers are condemned to rot in hellish life for as many thousands of years as there are hairs on the body of a cow. There are many mistakes and illusions in your scriptures. Their compilers, not knowing the essence of knowledge, gave orders that were against reason and arguments. After hearing these statements by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Kazi, his arguments stunned, could not put forward any more words. Thus, after due consideration, the Kazi accepted defeat. So that's Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaking. Interesting. So this is, we are at the point of Dhritarashtra, Pandu and Vidura are born, and we will hear the further development of the dynasty tomorrow. Any questions? Comments? Yes.
Thank you, Matt. So the goal of karma, the Kanda Sannyasa is to achieve Sarga. Would you say that? Like, what's the goal of the karma sannyasa?
And that's the goal of karma kanda.
Or karma sannyasa?
That's the same, karma kanda. That karma kanda means the attainment of the heavenly planets. And the expert in karma kanda was Sukracharya. And the demons liked him because that's what they want. They want to enjoy more and more. And they want to go to the heavenly planets without being qualified. And Sukracharya was going to make that possible by strength. They conquered the heavenly planets. But then to stay in the heavenly planets, you must be qualified by the karma kanda process. And there is also a process for becoming Indra, 100 Asvamedha Sakyas. And then when Bali Maharaj entered the heavenly planet, Sukracharya said, you should become qualified now. You perform these 100 Asvamedha Sakyas, or sacrifice, and then you can stay here. Otherwise not. But by strength, they could go there, but not stay. You must go to the karma kanda process. That the karma kanda process is a slow process. That giving charity, by doing all these sacrifices, you become qualified to go to the heavenly planets. But then you go to the heavenly planets, and what is there? The same problems as here. That because otherwise, these demigods were in heaven, but then Bali Maharaj comes, and they have to leave. So what's the use? There's always this battle going on between demons and demigods. You won't find peace either, the heavenly planets. But yes, karma sannyas was something like that, renouncing, that, but without knowledge. Without knowledge is useless. Yeah. Therefore, that's even not necessary in the karma kanda. Normally doesn't do. But some do it to be able to beg and fill their belly. That's the reason. Good. Something else? Yeah. Maybe.
And what's the difference between Jnana Sannyas, you said, and Veda Sannyas?
Yeah, the Jnana Sannyas, the Ekadandi Sannyas, and their goal is to merge with Brahman. That the sannyas, and the Vaishnava sannyas has 3 dandas representing body, mind, and words. By keeping the danda, that he reminds the sannyasi, I must use my body, mind, and words in the service of Krishna. So that's the Vaishnava sannyas, is service to Krishna. That's the highest sannyas. But at the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there were no Vaishnava sannyasis to take sannyas from. So, and one has to take sannyas from another sannyas. Yes, and therefore he took sannyas from Keshava Bharati. Bharati, who was Mayavadi, interesting. But of course, he had this Ekadanda stick, and Nityananda didn't like it, and he broke the stick and said, you don't need it, you are a Supreme Personality of God. And he threw it in the river. Anyway, that's our story. Yes, next.
So in the verse it says that Srila Vyasadev's son is Pandu, right? And then Pandu's son is Arjuna. So does that make Vyasadeva Arjuna's grandfather? I thought Vishnu gave his to him.
That's interesting. Arjuna was a son of Indra. That is reality. That he was the son of Indra because Kunti had this power to call any demigod, and Pandu could not have children because of a curse. That therefore, in that way, they got children. That special case. But something else? Yeah. Yeah, yes, in that sense. So his father was Pandu, and then his grandfather. Yeah, that's well. He was considered their grandfather. Why? Why? Just a practical thing. Pandu died, and they were practically raised by Vishmadev, and they called them their grandfather. He was the grandfather was a son from Santana Maharaj. That Santana Maharaj. Yeah. Anyway, had another son, Vitra, that his name is Vishitra Virya. But Bhishma fought and he got Ambika, Ambika, and Ambalika. So, but Ambika and Ambalika, they became the wives of Vishitra Virya, the son of Sanatan Maharaj. Vishitra Virya was the brother of Vishmadev. So he fought and he got these princesses and they were married to Vishitra Vitra. But then what happened? Yes, he could not get children and he died of tuberculosis. So then Vyasadeva helped with so that Ambika and Ambalika could have children. And these children were Pandu, Vidura, and so on. And, so biologically, it's a little different here. That because yes, but they called Vishmadev grandfather, because that's how they knew him. That he was on the level of the grandfather. But he was the brother of Vyasadeva. Yeah. Very good.
Interesting how it seems like in this past in this times, like family members seems more like a role rather than always.
Yeah,
like even like not them.
It's a system of a joint family. Joint family. Today, that's not existing anymore. My Guru Maharaj was also born and he lived in a joint family. And he said that there's advantages, because if he would not get something of one aunt, he would go to another aunt and would get anyway, that's a joint family. But today, Kali-yuga, families fell all apart. Marriage is very temporary. After 4 or 5 years, you are statistically divorced. That doesn't exist anymore in this Kali-yuga. But anyway, you have our spiritual family that you should keep together in our spiritual family. It's much more valuable. Thank you. Good, something else. Good. Thank you very much. Yantara Shriman Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.